Harbouside is a community of 31 units. It's right on the harbour in Sooke. There are 7 buildings, and it is a senior co-housing. So co-housing is a concept that was developed in Denmark. It's been around there for about 60 years. The idea of people getting together and living in a more socially connected way. And so we've used a strata type of model, like a condominium model, in terms of creating the structure legally, but we do a lot of things very much in our own way. It started with a couple of people who were partners with me in creating Transition Sooke, and then they got interested in co-housing. And so they went down to California and met an architect down there, Charles Durrett, and took a course from him on what co-housing is and what does it mean. And the part that's a bit different with this particular co-housing project is that we were going to be the first senior co-housing, because co-housing in Denmark is also multi-generational. And we actually have several of these places in this area. There's Quayside in Vancouver, North Vancouver, which is a co-housing group, and they have older people and they have children, families with children and so on. And the same applies to Creekside near Courtney as well. So they came back from California and they started offering this course, this concept of co-housing, and basically people were learning about not only living in community, but also we talked about aging, and we talked about death and our expectations for those later stages of our lives. Then they began to get an idea of actually going ahead and doing something. So they had to have a minimum number of people who would be interested, put some money up. In our case, basically, we discovered that there was a consultant, Renee Matthew is her name, who has done quite a number of these projects in Canada, with one in Saskatoon and quite a few here on the coast. And she's a lady who's uniquely skilled at dealing with the real estate aspects of it, the financial aspects of it, the appraisal aspect of it, and was able to also be good at guiding people into creating a community that was somewhat affordable. The way this worked is that a company was formed, a number of companies was formed to build the project. So people started putting up some money and some equity funds into the kitty, as it were, so that they could begin the process of developing the community, getting interested parties to become active in the designing of what we wanted to do. So, of course, the first thing we had to do is find a piece of land that we wanted to develop. So there's probably about 15 people, I think, interested initially. And then eventually it got down to about 8 people who were willing to put some money up, some serious money. And so the company was going to build the buildings. They had to have a shareholder agreement with the company, and the company imposed a business model on how we conducted our affairs. So really this was not some kind of hippie co-op kind of thing. It was something that was very serious, that you had a shareholders agreement. It spelled out what was expected of you. If you wanted to withdraw from the project, there were conditions in which some of your money would probably be lost to the project. So once we had got that started, we started looking for pieces of land around Sooke. We wanted to find one that fitted the idea of a transition town community, where you were within walking distance of all the amenities you needed. And we found a place on the harbour. In fact, one of the first members who was kind of in the group following this said, "You should buy my place. I've got 2 acres on the harbour. I don't know what to do with it, and you're welcome to it." So I think we paid him about $2 million when we finally got to that point. And then, of course, we had to get the consultants that we would need to make this thing go. First of all, an architect. And the architect that was chosen was somebody that Ronnie had already been working with for several projects. So then we began the process of how do we build this thing together. Then we're looking into which contractor to use. We used Campbell Construction. Once we had built it and moved in, we didn't actually continue with the community building in the same way we had at the beginning. I think that as we got to know each other, we're able to trust the process enough to move forward. We finally moved in the beginning of 2016, after 15 months of construction. The first year was fine, everybody stayed, they were in place, it was stable. There was a couple of surprises where once we'd moved in, we found that several owners weren't going to live there right away. They had reasons for that, which were their reasons, but there were more than we expected. So we ended up with quite a few places being rented by the owners. And then in the second year, we had quite a bit of turnover. Several people sold and so on, because they realized that the discipline of being in a group and thinking about us and we rather than me and you was a challenge for some people, because we are so individually conditioned in this culture that, I have rights. Rights are the big deal here. And in strata situations, there's a lot of battles over that whole thing. You hear horror stories of what goes wrong when it goes wrong with that sort of stuff. But in the third year, which we've just completed, I think we can say that things have settled down quite nicely. And there were people also who found Sooke to be a bit too hokey, a bit not quite the kind of urban place that they'd enjoyed. So some people did go back to Victoria. And now we have people from all across the country. We got onto CBC about this, and there's quite a bit of interest in this. And so we've had a number of people come from Toronto and Ottawa and other places like that. Currently, we have 25 teams working to run the place, which is quite a job, actually. There's all kinds of things that you have to be concerned about: maintenance, depreciation reports and their implications for insurance, and all sorts of stuff like this. So we have people with different skills filling in. And the idea is, one of the key dreams of this project is to have what we call co-care, where when people need assistance, they can look to the group to provide that assistance within the realms of what works in our current situation. The idea is, I guess, is that people will hopefully age in place in such a way that they get carried out in a box at the end. And that's the ideal, of course. That may not work for everybody, but I think there's a fair bit of energy around supporting each other as we age and dealing with it. We have two members who are in their late 80s right now, and the youngest people are in their 50s. So there's a nice range of ages. We're kind of 50s and up seems to be the main area that we have people in the community. All decisions are made by consensus. That happened right from the very beginning, and that's also quite a challenge. To get to that point where everybody's willing to go along with the decision, even if they don't like it, that they can live with it. I would say that for me, this is a dream come true to be in this community. And you develop these relationships with people that are very precious. I would like to say, just in technical terms, that we put a lot of money up front in this development to have the best structural building, a wooden building. We have a 3-story apartment building on the main road going in, and the rest of them are duplexes and fourplexes. We have extremely high levels of insulation, and the doors and windows were tested very carefully. We have low power bills. We have a rainwater catchment system using cisterns for watering in the summertime. We do all our own waste. We recycle it on the property. The fact that we've put some extra money in really doing this as a quality building, it's actually called the Green Built Gold standard, a bit like the LEED standard, the same idea.